preface this question with something. Is it true that the United States had promised to return the Diaoyu Islands after the war and then reneged on it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, that's a great question. So this is the whole East China territorial dispute between Japan and China. So what happened is the island, the Diaoyu Islands, were part of China before 1894, before the first Sino-Japanese War. And during the first Sino-Japanese War, the Japanese defeated the Chinese Navy. They took over the island. And then as the treaty of Shimonoseki ending the war, China was forced to give up the island of Taiwan to Japan. So the Diaoyu Island, along with Taiwan, was got incorporated into Japanese empire as this war of conquest. So now, in 1945, according to the Potsdam Declaration, Japan was supposed to give up all these formerly occupied colonies and territory that would have extend to Diaoyu Islands. But there was a caveat, is because U.S. at the time occupied both the Okinawa island chain, the Ryukyu Islands. Oh, by the way, Ryukyu Islands also used to be an independent kingdom before 1870s, and then Japan occupied it in 1870s. The whole island chain, Ryukyu island chain, the independent kingdom was actually has a very close tie with China, and so because Japan was able to militarily defeat China, they were able to annex the whole of Okinawa to themselves. And so as during World War II, 1945, actually Okinawa, they suffered greatly during 1945 because the Japanese, they never really see the native Okinawans as kind of like, real Japanese. So they Japanese military forced many island residents to commit suicide rather than submit to the Americans. So somewhere estimate like either a quarter to maybe even half, a quarter to a third of the Okinawan population perished during the Battle of Okinawa, mostly because they're forced by the Japanese military to commit suicide. And then after the Battle of Okinawa, U.S. occupied the Ryukyu island chain, including Okinawa. U.S. was administering it, and U.S. also using the Diaoyu Island as a target for target practice for U.S. Navy. It was like they used for bombing practices and stuff. At this time, the government on Taiwan, the Chiang Kai-shek, who just recently fled from mainland, they're okay with Americans using the Diaoyu Islands as a bombing target because America is their sponsor, right? I mean, and they have no problem with that. So then in 1975, after 30 years of military occupation by United States, people of Okinawa, they got fed up. They want the Americans to go. So U.S. offered them a deal. So like, you can either continue the way it is, under American administration, or you can return to Japan. So most people then chose to return to Japan because they thought if we return to Japan, that means the U.S. military out, right? So they overwhelmingly chose return to Japan. But what ended up happening is nothing changed after Okinawa sovereignty was returned to Japan, because the Japanese, they want to keep all the Americans in Okinawa. They don't want more American soldiers on the Japanese homeland. Like I said, they've never seen Okinawans as like real Japanese. So keeps Americans over there. So and so this is a very big issue even today. The Okinawans do not want the U.S. military on their soil. But the Japanese governments are like, no, you have to make sacrifices for the Japan security, for our Japan-American security alliance, and which is completely bullshit, because the island voted year after year they wanted to get the U.S. out, but the Japanese central government's like, sorry, we make the call. We can't do that. But when American hand over sovereignty of Ryukyu island chain back to Japan, they also handed over Diaoyu Island, which they had used for target practice by their navy, to Japan. Even though Japan, the only claim on Japan is that it occupied it before World War II. So that's the origin of the dispute of the Diaoyu Islands. And this is why in the 1970s this suddenly became an issue, and then there was protests both on mainland China and Taiwan. It's like, whoa, what are you doing? Why are you taking our territory and giving it to Japan? And this is and U.S. official government line on this. We do not take official position on the sovereignty of the islands, but they just left a poison pill in the Japan-China relationship by doing this, because now like Japan and China were butting heads over these islands, but at that time, Deng Xiaoping told the visiting Japanese delegation, said, "Look, we have our differences, but we have more important things to work on our bilateral ties. So let's agree to put our difference aside, including the territorial dispute, and let's work on the things we can work on, which is our mutual friendship and cooperation." And so for a while, for the 80s, the China-Japan relationship went through kind of honeymoon phase. When I was in China in 1980s, there was a honeymoon phase because we got Japanese cartoons in television. We got a lot of Japanese cultural products, and like I said, in my family we had Japanese TV, Japanese refrigerator, but then the relationship would sour in the late 80s because the Japanese politicians keep on going to visit, pay respect to the Yasukuni Shrine. And for people who don't know, Yasukuni Shrine is where the Japanese war criminals are enshrined. And this wasn't an issue before 1970s, because before the 1970s, the war criminals, they are not enshrined in Yasukuni Shrine. So everybody goes. So it's not a problem. But in 1970s, some Japanese right-wing group, they took the plaques of the Japanese convicted war criminal who got hanged after World War II. They took them and put them and enshrined in Yasukuni Shrine. And because the Yasukuni Shrine, the people in charge are also right-wing themselves. They allow it to happen. So after that, there was protests from China, Korea, and Taiwan at that time. Everybody protested the decision. But the Japanese emperor, the same emperor who presided over World War II, he himself refused to visit Yasukuni Shrine after the criminal has been enshrined. But the Japanese politicians, they keep on going because they're trying to pander into their right-wing base, voter base, and that combined with the territorial dispute, that kind of poisoned the China-Japan relationship. I would say until today. And this is a whole. But what happened was in 2012, Japan government, they say, okay, we have a brilliant plan to defuse the situation, because at the time the islands were quote unquote owned by a group of Japanese private citizens, quote unquote. So they say, we will nationalize the island, we'll buy it, and so straight out. So then we won't allow the right wing group to go there planting flags across the sea, right? And but this is actually create a big incident. Like China's like, what do you mean you buy it? This is not your territory. And so that's when China would start sending its Coast Guard ships to Diaoyu Islands. So now that area in Diaoyu Islands have patrols by both the Chinese Coast Guard and the Japanese Coast Guard. So that's an issue. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Now we'll take a few brief questions because we know you got a lot to do. The first one is from Random Zerg. It says, question to Carl: what, in your opinion, are chances for some kind of pro-independent military or political coup happening in Japan in the coming 10 years?
No, I don't think that's happening, because if you look at Japan has remarkable political stability in the sense that it's a one-party state for most of the post-World War II period. LDP, US talk about great game about democracy, but it's junior partner in East Asia, in Japan, has this LDP that's ruling since since 1945 with minor interruption. It was only like I think there was one socialist candidate that won, but quickly got swept aside by American interference. And so U.S. have very tight grip on its client states, including Japan. I mean, this is how U.S. run the tight ship in Europe, in Japan, and even in South Korea. U.S. have a very tight leash. So there's not much of a chance for like I just don't see that kind of military coup happening, because right now also Japanese military, right now the Japanese right wing, they're also very in support of the Japan U.S. security alliance, even though they don't like Americans. The Japanese right wing, they're still butthurt over World War II. But they at the same time, they're scared of China's rise, just like Americans are scared of China's rise, because they remember what their grandfather did in China. I mean, like this is why they are. This is also why the American and Europeans they're scared of China's rise, because they're scared what the Chinese will do to them, what they had done to Chinese people in the past. That's their biggest psychological fear. That's why there's a lot of projection. And this is why the fear will drive the Japanese right-wing politicians. Another one of their goal is to remilitarize Japan, because after World War II, Japan had a peace constitution which prevent, which basically said Japan shouldn't have a military, and definitely Japan should not interfere overseas militarily. But that peace constitution had been continually undermined with encouragement of United States, because right now U.S. is realizing, crap, we had to sail across the Pacific to fight China. We can't do it alone. We need help. That's why they're rearming Japan right now. U.S. is actually actively encouraging Japan to remilitarize. That's why, like, there was a big increase in the Japanese military budget. Now Japan is authorizing this military. I mean, Japan wasn't even supposed to have a military under the peace constitution, but now they're authorizing their military to quote unquote protect their national security in case of Taiwan conflict. It's like, Taiwan is not Japanese territory. What the hell is I mean, they're only doing that because Americans really want them to get them on board, because like I said, America does not have enough power to fight China on its own right now. That's why it's trying to loop all the bodies, all the expendable bodies from its clients, like what they're doing to Ukraine, what they're doing with Ukraine right now. So U.S. in case the war break out, U.S. want the Chinese missiles to hit its client states in South Korea, to Japan, in Australia, so they don't come to hit United States. This is the whole U.S. plan. It's crazy that some of these client state politicians are going along with it, because by having U.S. military base actually makes you a target in time of conflict. Yes, so hopefully I answered that question.
Also, could you answer this? Doesn't the United States hold wartime control over the South Korean and maybe even the Japanese militaries?
Yes. So U.S. military has what they call the Joint Command, and what the Joint Command is really mean that U.S. will call the shots. U.S. general, it's not going to be Japanese or South Korean generals directing the U.S. Navy's aircraft carrier group. No. It's U.S. telling the Japanese and the Korean counterparts, okay, you will do your parts. In fact, the way that the whole Japanese Navy is structured right now, they specialize in anti-submarine warfare. Like they're specialized on that because they're basically the U.S. Navy's anti-submarine wing. I mean, they have to work together with United States. They just perform a very specific duty that's delegated to them, and this is how the U.S. empire is run. So yeah, good question, by the way.
And also, when it comes to China, and we'll come to a close, but maybe you can elaborate on this. One of the main reasons that the United States allowed Japan to seize those islands, or have the United States keep military bases in that region from the second island chain and everything, is to keep China's military hemmed in as a precaution so that it can dominate the Asia Pacific region.
Yeah, the whole first island chain, second island chain, all that terminology dated from the Cold War. I mean, back then it was the first island chain. It goes from Aleutian Islands, runs down from Japanese island, the Hokkaido, all the way down to the Philippines, Southeast Asia. That was to contain communism, like Soviet Union and China. And now it's just specifically mostly against China. And the because it's to deny the Chinese Navy access to the Western Pacific, where there's still a lot of American colonies, by the way, like Guam. I would even say Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii. U.S. really treats Hawaii as a colony even today. I mean, look at. First of all, Hawaii was illegally annexed, and now look at the Maui fire. Look at the Maui fire. What the hell is U.S. federal government doing? It's sending $20 billion, another $20 billion to Ukraine, and it's giving everyone on Maui $700 check. That's it. I mean, this is obscene, man. This is obscene. Like, yeah, it is criminal. I mean, like, this is why, U.S. What is U.S. doing to its own citizens? Like in China, there was a flood in Beijing, an area around Beijing. China deploys military, People's Liberation Army, to help with the flood relief. It's like, okay, you can say that's Chinese propaganda, but I'm still waiting to see the American propaganda to show American soldiers to help those people in the waters in Maui, man, like from the fire. It's like you don't even bother to do that because U.S. military they just strut around the world putting up those Hollywood-esque commercials, but they don't do jack for its own people. But we all know that.
Well, Carl, thank you so much for the time. And we've got to do this again, and we've got to do this again soon, man.
Yes.
I love this. Any closing or parting words for the people who are watching and will watch later on?
I just maybe this comment is because Maddie says people don't realize it will not just be U.S. Navy versus Chinese Navy. It will be Chinese mainland Air Force and coastal missile defense system. This is because U.S. is trying to fight China at China's doorstep. This is because you are literally this is why one thing U.S. have to overcome. Actually, to do that, they have to overcome so-called the distance of tyranny. They have to cross the entire Pacific Ocean to fight China. And where China, they don't have to go out. They can just fire their missiles from China, and they will cover the whole area around Taiwan, South China Sea. They can send their Air Force. But of course, if U.S. directly attack mainland China, it's World War III, right? I mean, it's all bets are off. And so this is completely ridiculous to U.S. to think that that's even feasible to engage like a hot war with China. That's the end of civilization as we know it, man. Like I really hope these people in Pentagon as decision maker, because I don't think Joe Biden is making calls and he doesn't even know what he's talking about. so the deep state people, I really hope the deep state people have some sense of self-preservation. They can keep on this racket of ratcheting up pensions and so they can line up their own retirement fund, but like just don't need to blow up the world for that, right? Like that's completely not necessary. And I just hope they have that good sense. And this is we live in hope, man. We live in hope, peace and hope.
Well, thank you again for giving us your time, man. You gave us more than enough time. I want to get you back on here soon so that we can chop it up again, man. I really appreciate the time. And like I said, I'll move my schedule around to make sure that we can do this again.
Yeah. This was a lovely conversation. I mean, I'm loving this because you get it. Like I don't have to explain to you, the freaking the underlying white supremacism underlying the whole U.S. empire. We get it. Okay, but yeah, let's definitely do this again. I had a great fun.
All right, man. I'll check on you in a few days. We can talk about it. Hey, be blessed. Make sure your family is blessed. Stay safe, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Rashid.
Everybody, thank you. Thank you all for joining us on this edition of the Red Pill Diaries. Remember, if you know better, do better. Make sure you treat everybody as you would like to be treated. Um, and don't just do it because people are watching, because do it because it's the right thing to do. Okay. On that note, know that I love each and every one of you if you love truth, but the true and living God will love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. And mama, you see me shining? I'm a reflection of you. Hey mama, your baby boy loves you more than life.